Thank you for joining us. This is Filmmaker commentary for The Two Professors. It's an indie tribute film to Indiana Jones. And with me are two actors, actor and writer, DONN SWABY and Rey Marz.
Hey.
Hey.
So, Rey is an actor who plays Professor Peter Graham in this film. And in addition to acting, Rey actually has a master's degree in special education with experience teaching theater and language arts for kids with special needs. And he also has experience as a visual artist, drawing and painting murals. In one particular is an interactive murals for kids with special needs. To help take education beyond the classroom, a mural project called Anchoring a Dream. Also with me is writer, actor, and producer DONN SWABY. This is our second one together. First one was the Star Wars, so you guys got to check that one out. I'll put the link right here. DONN is a professional actor and writer. He acted in radio, theater, television, and film for 26 years. Man, you look young. And he's had one He's had one feature film produced, Buds for Life, and he has written and acted and produced in webisodes and several short films and a bunch of stuff. Go check out his IMDb credit. So without further ado, we'll get into the film right now. We'll chat a little bit afterwards. So you guys ready to start the film?
Yeah, looking forward, man. Let's do it.
All right, so this is the opening sequence, which is, it's so cool because it's the map that Don drew. So obviously you've seen the movie.
Yeah, so it's a nice little rise up there with the camera to our sort of predicament tied up.
Right. I always love the reveal because that's where, like, you just think there's two guys just hanging out. And it's a pretty fast reveal, but then you find out that they're tied up. So
there you go. Now we see the guards. Right, a little bit more of their situation. Right.
And it's always just building and building, which is a great screenwriting technique. I think Terry Rossio, who actually helped us out on our other film that we're going to be doing a commentary for, he always said to have like really big failures. You know, like in Pirates where they have this huge, they're fighting 100 people and then finally they lose. So it's kind of like this, so you're like failing. It's kind of like the reverse now, but you're actually breaking away. But it just keeps stair-stepping up.
Yeah, well, you know, definitely with this whole thing, I mean, I wanted us to start, you know, sort of again, like this being sort of a mini Indiana Jones film. That the beginning of this would be, you know, the end of one adventure, so to speak, and this is why they're in the middle of this predicament, and this is all expo, you know, that they're doing now. I'm trying to break free, but you know, there's all that expo about what happened all before, you know, and sort of hushed whispers, and then of course I get the idea to make our great escape. As one of the guards goes to take a leak.
It's great because like we're like when I'm shooting this, I'm like I started memorizing their lines, and that's where I'm kind of racking focus between the two, and it's just I love two people in one scene more than individual takes because that's where the comedy really comes out.
Yes. So in this moment here, I get the idea the wonderful idea to take my ashes of my Uncle Phil, and well, you'll see, you know, what I do in a moment. But basically, the ruse is the fake sneezing. The guard comes up, and boom, right in the eyes.
that was a really genius thing in the screenplay. I love it.
And the guy comes around zipping up his pants.
Oh man. And then straight up that hill, that took forever to kind of perfect that.
Should we pause here? Or
all right, pause.
Do you want to pause? Yes, the hill.
Yeah, we should release the outtakes because like I just let it roll. These guys like trying to climb up with dress shoes.
And the dirt was so soft. Yeah. That's why we couldn't get up. That the dirt was so soft. It was literally we were just like. It was like treading water, but we couldn't get up there, which is like, okay, we would have been shot and killed by now.
Yeah, I agree. That was a challenge to get up that hill. Just your shoes. I'm wearing those nice dress shoes, and in my bag I have some even, you know, spoiler alert, some even nicer dress shoes. So I'm carrying my bag up there too, and just grabbing branches, grabbing Don's arm, wherever it could. Do to get up there, but yeah, wow.
Yeah, made it look real. Made it really look real.
Yeah,
well, it was real.
Really struggling to get up there.
You guys are really struggling, and so were the other guys. Say an epic is where it starts in the middle of the story. You know, like same with Star Wars. It's like a battle between Leia and Darth. I know you're a big Joseph Campbell, and I really want to touch up on this towards the end. But can you give a quick, just like your mindset when you were writing this, like the opening scene?
Okay, well, yeah. I mean, again, the idea for this was that I wanted to pay homage to, the Indiana Jones, actually the serials that inspired Indiana Jones, really, because the serials that inspired Lucas and Spielberg were the ones in the '40s, where you basically had these little shorts that were part of a story, and every week the kids would go to the movie theater to get the next part. You know what I mean? So they would see like, I don't know, 5, 10, 15 minutes, 20 minutes of a story. Then it'd be a cliffhanger. So again, and modeling it after those, or being inspired by those serials that in turn inspired Indiana Jones films to actually start off, as you said, in the middle of the story, so to speak, and basically have just everything just kind of being like starting at the get-go, like you're already running.
And then when you're writing, obviously you've got other thoughts in your head, like what percentage are you throwing away or not putting into this screenplay? And like, do you have ideas for like prequels and sequels to this?
Well, hey man, I did have an idea. If you remember, I did kind of share with you a little bit about what would be the next part of this if we were to ever do it, which I think would be kind of cool. And yeah, I mean, it would be it would be cool to maybe set that up where it would just be a continuation of them getting in more and more trouble, so to speak. The sort of like waiting for Godot aspect of not waiting for Godot, not even that. I'm sorry. Guildenstern. What's it? Or
Rosencrans.
Rosencrans, thank you, and Guildenstern are dead.
Yeah.
The idea that like Rosencrans and Guildenstern, who never reach their destination, we're trying to catch up with Indy, and it would be the funny thing is that with each episode that we just maybe miss him each time, kind of a thing. Like this time, we just get close enough to see oh, okay, he's ahead of us still, and he's wherever.
Right.
But we're the bumbling fools trying to keep up in his adventure, basically.
Cool. All right, let's continue with this. And so here's the running scene, which I love because Rey's bow tie fell at the perfect spot, but we never kept that.
And this scene, of course, was modeled. I mean, when I wrote it, I imagined the beginning of Raiders of the Lost Ark, when Indy's running, and the Jovito's natives are chasing him, over that hill, and he's running towards the lake and the boat, and that was that idea, just that just basically running, for our lives, kind of thing. And here we are at the tree.
All right, so Rey, talk about your motivations for this one.
Well, like, I want to make sure that I am safe and that we're on the right course to getting away from these guys, but I don't want to give up my shoes, Those are my going out to dinner shoes.
Your shoes were a bigger motivation than your life.
I know.
But it was awesome. Like everybody I've shown the film to, they always talk about that. So, and here's the one. This is where like it's just like coming up with ideas on the set. I was like, let's do it where they're escaping right behind them.
Should we pause?
I love that.
Should we pause right here before we
let's
go
pause.
to the next?
I always like to have the people know everything that's going on, so they came in looking in that direction. So now they're turning around, kind of looking back, because that's some of the things that people say, well, how come they're not looking behind them? I'm like, well, because they came in and that was their whole, point of view. Because, like, you always think, like, from an actor's motivation, right? Like, I mean, you guys can both talk about that, to where you feel like I have to look that way because that's what my character would do. Can you guys talk a little bit more about motivation?
Well, yeah, I mean, running for our lives, basically, I mean, the idea is that these guys have guns and, we could be dead. And the idea is that we're also fish out of water. I mean, the beginning, it's very clear when we talk in the exposition that we're both professors. We're both colleagues of Dr. Jones at Marshall College, which is the fictional college that Dr. Henry Jones, sometimes as a part-time professor, I guess, and and we suckered him into letting us join him and tag along, on his adventure, only to, of course, be in all this hot water, and now, as I said, we're like fish out of water, just basically like this is not what we're used to,
Yeah. And my other motivation besides running for my life is I don't want to leave anything behind, like all my stuff in my bag, my toiletries and everything. Like I don't want to leave that and drop that, so I'm clutching that onto me like for dear life.
Right.
Everything I got in my bag is that's my survival kit. So
And also, this is really catered for filmmakers and actors because I feel like they're the biggest viewers of this. So from an actor standpoint, like, because you guys both just in character, I mean, it was just like spot on. And so a lot of that's like, how do you stay in without breaking?
yeah,
Well, just
yeah,
yeah. I mean, making it's because it's us. I mean, for me, unlike other characters, there's no different dialect or voice or anything that I necessarily have to do. It's just I'm just talking the way I usually talk, but just putting myself in that position.
Yeah.
And like you said, just playing that motivation of like, okay, we got to go because these people are trying to kill us. The one thing that I feel that I didn't realize until I think we were shooting it, and then afterwards was seeing that my character was in those situations, those pressured sort of moments, coming up with something. How do you come up with something? I don't know if I would be able to come up with something the way my character did, in those moments, right, to save your life. It's like,
Right.
And sort of in that way, my character, Professor Randall Harding, aspires to be like an Indiana Jones, and he's the one, of course, who had convinced, Professor Peter to come along as well, because he really wants to, he's heard all these stories about, Dr. Jones and his adventures, and he wants to experience it himself. And so in those moments, like with the shoes, or even like with the sneezing, with the uncle's ashes, those are just moments where I think, I wanted the character to be able to rise above the situation and actually come up with something, just seemingly on the spot. Like, and that's really what hopefully comes across, that it's really nothing's planned. Just like with Indy, nothing's planned. That's what I love about Indy. I'll take Indiana Jones over James Bond any day, because because Indy, it's sloppy, it's messy, it's spontaneous. It looks James Bond looks it's just too like rehearsed. It looks planned almost. What he's
Right.
gonna do a second before he does it. He almost like it's like I'm gonna do this right now because that's good. That's the perfect move.
Yeah,
And it's like Indy is like let me just try this and see if it works.
Yeah, and what I really love about Indy and what our characters went throughout this experience is we really immersed ourselves into the environment and our costume and whatever was around us. And that's kind of what drove us and what gave us what we reacted to a lot, is just being in that environment and trying to use what we can to survive.
Right. Actually,
Yes.
speaking of costumes, Don, can you talk a little bit about that? Because actually, in this spot right here where we froze, these people were walking down and they're like, "Oh, you guys are making a period piece. Awesome."
Yes, exactly, and that was the idea of it too. Is to create a sense of that 1958. You're right, because this is actually right, because we're setting this after Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, actually. So just the idea was that and Ray came up with his costume, I came up with mine, and mine was just found, honestly, pieces that I found over the course of several weeks at like different fringe stores, around Hollywood. Just like I found the vest in one place and I found the pants in another, and I already had the shoes because because I'm a nerd that way, so I got had the wingtips already. But and then found the tie, which happened to match the vest and all of that. So I was like, oh, perfect. Just to kind of give it that sort of, as you said, period,
Yeah.
piece
Oh wow. Okay.
or feel.
Yeah, same here. Just found stuff, friends, family, any item, the case that I had, and in the tie. It was actually my dad's tie, and but for some reason it kept falling off throughout most of this shoot. And the scene where we're running away, with the bad guys in front of us in the foreground, I remember it was that field where the tie it just somehow slipped off while we were running, completely lost in that tall grass. And
Oh yes, yes.
Oh,
yeah,
you lost it.
Miraculously, yes, we lost it for a
Oh,
minute.
man.
Or did we ever find it? Did you ever find it or no?
we did. We found
Yes,
it because
right.
we still had some more scenes to shoot, and we are like,
We,
oh
we gotta
man, I don't
find
know
that.
how we're gonna
Or
film
we're
everything
screwed,
else
right?
with my tie on.
Oh, man.
And then, but yeah, I remember Don, you found it. Like we were searching, combing that grass, and then Don just kind of, raised up from the grass and had the tie in his hand. We're like, whew.
Man, I was praying hard, really, because I'm thinking, no, we're not gonna lose this tie, and then we're not gonna be able to not, finish this thing. There's no way. We're gonna find this thing. And it was funny because
Yeah.
one of our PAs, Cynthia Vicerti, who was gracious enough, along with another PA, Matt Stedman, to really help us out with this film and just kind of be there, with helping with the lights and sound and props and all that. She was like, "Wow, it's a miracle, you guys, and all that running, as well as searching for the tie, that you didn't run into any snakes in that
Oh,
tall
right.
Yeah.
grass."
No. And you know what's funny about the tie situation kind of always coming off? It reminded me of when I was watching behind the scenes for the Indiana Jones, the third one, where Indy's tie, his hat always kept coming off, and in one particular behind the scenes shot, he actually got a stapler out or something and kind of stapled the hat to his head, because that was kind of the running joke, as Indy kept losing his hat.
Yes,
Stapled in his head.
Yeah, I don't know where I remember seeing that, but it's an actual little behind the scenes documentary for the third Indiana Jones movie.
That sounds like a
And,
jackass scene. Man.
Yeah.
And it's funny because that's the only film actually where his hat actually, which I love. I love that moment where there's a moment where just before the tank scene appears to go over at the climax of, spoiler alert, at the end, with the main climax of fighting with the bad guys, that there's a tank with Indy in it. Is about to go over a cliff with Indy, and his hat falls off at that moment. And it's like, ooh, that's not good. But then, of course, his dad and Marcus and everybody finds out, and Sala find out that Indy luckily jumped out of the tank before it went over the cliff, and then of course within 2 seconds later his hat blows into the scene, like his hat just happened to be saved too. Of course his hat, and of course the next thought is like, of course his hat's gonna still be there.
All right, so this is where I think it's a requirement that every movie that Don and I do together, Don has to run.
Yep, yeah, a lot of running. Did miles.
And this scene is great.
I'm glad you had those extra pair of shoes.
I'm glad you had your uncle. So now what? We can't go back out there or they'll find us.
I know. Wait a second. You know what?
Dr. Jones gave you his map?
I sort of borrowed it. Didn't get a chance to give it back.
Aculi, accludere, aculos, aperire.
You must close the eyes to open the eye.
Well, sure, we still don't know what the devil that means.
And this part is genius with the map closing of the eyes.
Oh yeah.
And where I got that from is the Mad Magazine cover on the back when we were kids. That Mad Magazine, like you'd have to fold it and you'd see a different image.
Yeah.
That's exactly where I got that from.
What, every Mad Magazine had a folding thing?
Yeah, in the back of it, there would be an image, of something, a scene. But then if you folded it in three parts and sort of covered the middle part, you would actually have a totally different scene, a totally different image. So that was the idea, of that part. I wanted it to be like, where they had to like work and try to figure stuff out, and hence therefore the Latin, phrase as well, which is very cryptic, to open the eyes in which you first must close the eye, kind of a thing. And then in terms of the look of the map actually came from J.R.R. Tolkien and Lord of the Rings, of course, because if you notice, it's I was inspired by, the Lord of the Rings map.
There's actually way more non-Indiana Jones influences on this than Indiana Jones, which is cool.
Yeah.
And you drew the map out, right, Don?
Yes, I had a lot of fun creating that, and yeah, just because, like I said, just when I creating that concept, I just knew that it would, again, since it was going to be a short, I wanted every part of it to actually really, be things we revealed, either character or a little bit of a plot or something. So for me, that was just a really fun moment to create the map and them discovering the secret in the map and all that.
Right. Actually, I've got the map right in front of me because we had some additional shoots, and I said, let me just hang on to it just in case. So the texture of it's amazing. Like, you made it look like it's ancient, like the Dead Sea Scrolls or something. How'd you do that?
YouTube videos, my brother. Anything you want to know how to do, you just look up some YouTube videos. Seriously, straight
Come
up.
on, you're supposed to say it's an ancient thing handed down from my grandfather.
Right. You just go on YouTube. There you go. But yeah, no, I watched a couple of videos and got the idea in terms of how to age it and how to make it kind of, what type of paper or the wrinkling of it and all of that. And then, like I said, just, wanted it to look really old and like a Middle Earthy kind of thing. Yeah, that's how, created that.
And so, Rey, your character was he was kind of surprised that Don borrowed, quote unquote, the map from Dr. Jones. Because that reaction that you have there and the delivery was awesome because that's one of the things I kind of focused on in the editing was just seeing what I was like, oh, I borrowed it, and you just kind of look at him like, oh man, we're in deep crap.
Yeah. I kind of got a little sense of my my colleague's sense of adventure there, just getting what he needs in order to get to the bottom of this mystery, what happened to Indy. And I'm like, oh, wait a minute. Oh, okay. I guess it's okay then.
like we'll deal with that later. Yeah, we're probably gonna get an earful from Dr. Jones. But I also want to say
Right.
too, that this scene actually, in my opinion, also proves that there's no one else who could have done this. Be in the predicament that they're in and get as far as they do because of the fact that they are professors. I mean, because only professors would have been able to easily translate that Latin into into something. So if we weren't professors, we probably would have been stuck.
Uh-huh.
I just want to know how these professors had this kind of cardio capabilities.
Yeah, well, those college campuses can be pretty big and probably a lot of stairs too.
So we've been conditioned. We were conditioned. We were prepared for this without even knowing.
Right.
We were being prepared.
So this actually, we shot everything in reverse order because like any destination spot like this, it fills up really fast with tourists. So we got this, I think, 6 a.m. or something.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So you'll see the haze, but it kind of works out because it looks a lot more. It looks gloomier and gloomier as they're getting in, to the cave.
Yeah, and I thought it was important to capture us doing this in the first part of the day when our energy was the most, because that was a challenge getting up that rock
With
climbing that, Yeah, we did it a few times too, and you got a real workout from it.
Oh yeah.
So, and this is, of course, the reveal of the hat.
Indy's hat. Oh yeah. Famous Stetson. Make no mistake. I love the fact that not only was this again a perfect location, but even the sounds. We had some ambient sounds were going on. Like what is that, an animal? What is that? But
No,
it just
that's all Aaron's sound design. That's what Aaron and I were working on. Yeah, I'm like, I would need some snake sounds. I want some eagles. I was trying to find an eagle for when you go over the thing, but right here I wanted like really scary, almost like kind of having the Indiana Jones going to the snake pit vibe.
Yeah.
There.
Yes. Yeah, and to be continued.
Yeah.
Nice little cliffhanger there. It's like, what do they find? Well, stay tuned, boys and girls.
And then so actually on this, the maps, I kind of have each section based on the person, what they do. Like for audio, it was like the ear of the skull. For the cinematography, it was the eyes of the skull. For the for the assistant director, it was kind of like the north, south, east, west. Yeah, so it kind of had like meaning behind all these things.
Okay. Oh, that's cool. I didn't know that.
See, like
man.
sound
That's
is
awesome.
both of the ears of the skull. The assistant director is like the one who kind of keeping everybody on track. You know, the key
That's the
grip is the one who
directions.
carries everything over the hills.
Yes, excellent. No, I didn't. That's great, man. I love that. You just sharing that actually.
Yeah, it's one of those things where I just like
Yeah.
while I'm doing it, I was like, oh yeah, this is cool, because I always like to put like meaning behind. Like I love those DJs who tie in song after song after song. You know, like this guy played on this record, who played on the next song. So I've always liked that with like movies and try and connect stuff. So, yeah, so it came out great, and everybody
It
is like,
did.
all right, to be continued. When's the next part coming out? So that's the first question.
Yeah. I mean, so I was thinking the same thing, brother. I'm like, hey, when are we gonna do this the next part? Just because this one, I mean, out of all the things we've done, you know, I'm really just very, very proud of this one in particular, because it really came out exactly how I imagined it. I mean, as I was, and I even did a storyboard for this, which I shared with Anu as well, after writing the script. So, you know, we followed the storyboard, and it was just, it really looked and felt and sounded exactly the way I'd imagined that, like it could be part of an Indiana Jones film. And like you mentioned, of course, which I didn't even realize, even with all that ambient sound, the brilliant score by Aaron Kusterer, who also did our score for the Star Wars The Mission film as well. And just, you know, and I told him, you just make it sound like the Indiana, you know, an Indiana Jones film. And in fact, in the chasing scene, I actually myself had come up with, because I'm also a musician too, had come up with a melody, a little melody that I heard in my head that was very similar in some way to the melody that you hear in well, just before the basket scene where Indy and Marion are in Cairo, and those masked, armed swordsmen, you know, come after them, and in the marketplace, Indy's beating them up and all that kind of stuff, and so I had that just this little melody in my head, and I remember, you know, when New got Aaron to do this film, I just gave it to him, said, hey man, you know, I don't know how, or even, you know, how you're gonna incorporate it, but if you can, please, it'd be great to incorporate this melody. And he took that thing and ran with it and just created this beautiful part. Really, if you hear it, and I'm like, yes, that's it, that's exactly what I was hearing in my head. So, you know, he just did above and beyond work. Like you said, just the sound design and production. We actually did a day where he and I and Ray just did all the ambient sounds from the running, and, you know, brushing past the bushes and the trees and all that stuff, and just getting all that sound. And we must have ran, you know, in this park, you know, over gravel and dirt, getting all these sounds.
Right.
And he made it sound great. He made it sound, you know, just really created an amazing tapestry that totally helps.
Yeah, I know. I
sell
was
it.
talking to him, and he was saying that like he does a lot of different scores and stuff like that. And on this one, his wife walked by, and she was like, "Oh, this is really good." And he's like, "Well, she never says that about my scores." so.
Well, if the wife approves, then you good. Then you know
Right,
you're
because
good.
she sees all his works, you know. So,
His first critic, yeah.
and also we'll talk about Johnny Walker and Rudy Baca. Love that name, Johnny Walker.
Ah, yes. Johnny Walker. I mean, come on, right. You're going to cast a guy named Johnny Walker. You have to.
He's a BYOB with him.
Exactly. But yeah, they were great. You know, especially Johnny with, you know, that beginning. I mean, I loved that, you know, after I blow the ashes in his face, he kind of wipes his face and puts on his glasses, and it's such a great iconic bad guy moment, you know, for him in that moment to be like, all right, let me go get these sons of bees, you know.
Right. And actually,
you can see the anger.
and I was actually working with Aaron on that. I was like, give me a boom on every time he like swipes his face, put the glasses on. And so if you listen carefully to it now, obviously we're just giving away all secrets, but there's like accentuations for every one of his move in the audio as well. So, so it's awesome. Same with like the zipper zipping up, you know, after he takes a leak. So it's like there's always like something just to kind of push forward. Cool. Okay, so let's get into like the craft of acting, writing, making films. So why would you make a Indiana Jones film? Like, why not do an original, just completely your own film?
Well, I mean, you know, for me, this was just a passion project. This was something that I mean, I myself, of course, would love to be in an Indiana Jones film. I would love to be in Indiana Jones 5. I mean, I don't even know if they've, even begun casting it for that much matter. I don't even know if they've agreed on a script yet. I mean, I know that David, what's his name, was writing it for a while, and then he's out. And then I said to myself, well, if I'm not going to be in an Indiana Jones film right this moment, or whether or not I'm get a chance to be in the fifth one, let me just create something myself. Why not? I'm a writer, and I also know other filmmakers. We'd already done a couple of films together, so that was the idea. Like, let me just make my own sort of mini Indiana Jones film, and then, as I said, I wanted to make it like really feel and sound like one. So that was the main main thing.
And what's interesting is, like, you're always because, like, everybody's always trying to be original, like, right, they want to come out with the next Godfather, that their own version of it. So there is a lot of hesitancy to do like a tribute film or a fan film, and so I had hesitations at first, but then, like, now I've worked on over 600 projects, like, in all capacities, and, like, these two are like my favorites. I mean, I had so much fun with them, and it's there's this mental real estate that people have. When it's an indie film like Wedding, it's hard to get people into it because it's completely original. But when it's something that they already know, they're already connecting the dots in their head, so it's a lot more accessible to your friends who are not filmmakers.
Right.
So
and bear in mind, we're being really original too. I mean, even in the script, I mean, the idea was again not to copy necessarily anything. I think the best fan films are ones that can take familiar ideas or familiar characters and sort of things, but then put them in a new situation, or so they can reveal something new about their characters or things like that. So for me, especially with Two Professors, with this, I mean, I wanted to create these original characters that, yes, were somewhat sort of like I mean, I did think of Professor Brody going along with Indy on his adventure in Last Crusade, that kind of a thing. Sala, so there was a sort of Sala and Professor Brody sidekick kind of element to this too. But and again, my idea was, okay, well, within that, what can I do to create something that is just going to be adventurous, like an adventure, a segment or an episode, if you will, of an adventure story, and thus the idea of coming up with the escape, and then the map and the cave and all that kind of stuff.
Right. And actually, I think that's what sets this apart from other fan films. Like, other fan films, like, they try and recreate Darth Vader or Darth Maul, and it's like, and you're not gonna match the original, with their Hollywood budgets of $100 million, and you're doing it for a few $100s or a few $1,000s. But when you have completely original characters, but in that same universe, I think that's what gives it kind of an edge, So
Yeah, I agree with you, actually, 100% on that. Because when you have the original characters, then you're actually creating your own thing. But with, as you said, the accessibility for people is going to be the whole, oh yeah, this is it's got to feel like an Indiana Jones feel or a Star Wars feel or whatever. But then you kind of you take them over with the good storytelling, hopefully, if it's told well. And in this case, I think it is, where they're engaged and they're not watching it, comparing it to an Indiana Jones film. And because I think it's when it's bad, that's when you say, well, yeah, okay, then they tried, but it's not really like an Indiana Jones film, or it's not really like a Star Wars film. And I think you only get those comparisons when the fan film is actually bad.
Right, and I have those friends where, they're just critiquing every movie. Every Marvel movie comes out, they're like, this sucked, that sucked. And one of the comments I got was like, this is the best thing I've seen. So, because it does, there is that magic about indie filmmaking where you can't capture with the Hollywood budgets, So that's why I'm really glad to be a part of this thing. Actually, Ray, talk about how you got involved in this whole thing.
Yeah, well, actually, Rudy Baca, we just mentioned, he plays one of the guards. We had worked on another project together, and he just said, Ray, this looks perfect for you. It's a professor in the 1950s, Indiana Jones style. And I said, okay. So, yeah, I just submitted my resume and everything, and then Don got back with me and sent me the script, and, I just, got swept away into the adventure right off the bat.
Right.
And that was a perfect bit of casting too. Just so you know, I mean, I didn't even see really anything that you'd done. No reels, no audition, no demo. You just played the character perfectly, Ray. I mean, it's just it couldn't have been better casting, bro.
And one of the cool things about it's a familiar world, the Indiana Jones and the characters you're kind of bringing to life are somewhat familiar in ways, but once you have fun with it, it like all of this kind of becomes more personable in a way. It becomes kind of real to yourself, and then that kind of elevates what you're doing in the scene and the material altogether. So that's kind of one of the key things, is just have fun with it, and let that kind of come out.
Right. And
Yeah.
do you guys carry the character with you? Like, I mean, do you still kind of like maybe say something like, "These are my going out to dinner shoes"?
Yeah, sometimes. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to be said for Professor Peter Graham. That's
No, but
Yeah.
do you, like, as an actor, like, do you shake the role off, or are there parts of that kind of just stay with you for life?
Well, I mean, for me, I will say, that I mean, there are certain roles that are maybe just after shooting, or not even after shooting. Sometimes it could be stage roles. I know for me, one of the most challenging roles of my career, acting wise, whether it be stage, film, or TV or radio, was a play that I did called We Be I Me, where over the course of 3 or 4 years, we actually, me and the cast of this, it was actually written and directed by Leon Gray, who is now a prominent director and producer, some really great work in New York and elsewhere. He's actually got a show in Miami opening up. But anyway, that play, that particular role, it was so emotionally challenging and demanding. It was basically a prisoner in actually about to be executed, and sort of just like a life flashing before his eyes. The whole play is about him sort of looking back through his whole life and all of the abuse and all of the violence and all of the happy times and the first loves and all of the things that he went through. And I'm sort of experiencing those things, reliving all of those happy and really horrible traumatic moments before I actually get executed. So it's a heavy role, and it was literally exhausting to do, where at the end I would be wiped out when I did the play. So that was something that took a while just to decompress from. Whereas this was more just, when I think about it, I think and I smile, honestly. And whenever I think of the film, and the two professors out there, I just smile. And I'm going to say this now because I know we talked about it a little bit and we've talked about it before, but I'll say it now on the commentary anew. Hey, man, if you wanted to seriously, consider doing the next part or creating a continuation of this story, I'm all for it, and I'm down to do it. I actually have an idea. I've had an idea for a while, which I shared with you, which we started talking about a little bit. So I know we're both busy with other stuff, but if we ever get a chance to come back to this or do it, I'm totally willing to
Absolutely.
to do it. And Ray too, of course. Obviously, Ray would have to. We'd have to be a part of it too.
And that's one of those things, like, you get to a point, like, because like you said you've been doing this for like 26 years, like I've been doing it like almost 20 years, and you get to that point, at first you're just like desperate to do everything, and then later you start getting a little more choosy, and then even if they're not coming your way, you're just like, I don't really want to do that. Like like I've acted in 180 student films, from like every film school in Southern California. And after a while, you're like, all right, I'm over it. So, but this is something where I'm actually excited to get back into, So, yeah, let's definitely talk about it. So, you heard it first here.
Yes. It is now official. We are now officially considering doing the next part of the
It'll come out in 2025.
Exactly. Worth the wait, guys. Worth the wait.
So, for all the actors that are listening, like, how much stuff did you learn from acting school or studying acting, how do you apply it to this? And then we'll talk a little bit about what actually happens on set versus like acting class. And Ray, you want to go first?
Oh, sure. Yeah. Like I wasn't really into acting at all for most of like high school, a lot of college years. I didn't really consider it at all. I was mostly into the visual arts. I would draw, and in a lot of ways I kind of felt like a Disney animator. I would get so animated drawing character faces and stuff. At some point it just kind of triggered in me, like, you know what? Maybe I can try doing this without the paper, without, the pencil and paintbrush, and, just become those characters that I'm drawing, in real life on stage somewhere or something. And, I would practice, like when I would read a book out loud to my nieces and nephews and, anybody in my family, I would read with characterisms, like just, become a character, become a narrator. And that kind of made me think a little bit more about doing acting and stuff like that. So I thought, let's try doing this, get a little professional and find a teacher, a class, and learn something. And like the very first day when I was auditing a particular class, the professor of the class, the teacher, acting coach, kind of came up to me and had me read from a script, and he gave me kind of a real valuable lesson where, like, I was playing a bad guy in this little script that he just handed to me, and at the end of it, he kind of played the lines off me, and he said, "You know what? You're kind of sounding too intentional. Like you're like an old timey bad guy. You should be twirling a black, mustache and something like that. Try just sounding yourself, and let the script and the motion and characterization let that kind of flow from just being yourself and reading the script. Sometimes that can be the most effective thing, And we did it again, and I just learned so much from that one little moment, that experience, and yeah, so I just kind of took off from there. I did some community theater and did some auditions, and learned a lot from that experience, and then started doing a little film work. And yeah, it's been a learning experience, and each project you kind of learn a little bit. It's a little bit of discovery when you're reading a script. And you kind of feel like, oh, that should be emphasized here and there. And you kind of do a little bit of study on how things can be played out. And then you actually play it out. And
so give me some
a little bit more
examples with this film. Like what was the most challenging part of acting in this one? And what was the easiest?
The most challenging part of acting?
In this film, in The Two Professors.
Oh, in The Two Professors?
Yeah.
Probably the physical aspect of like mastering the terrain, especially wearing like nice fancy shoes. It was surprising. Like when you're running and climbing, and a lot of those areas are not really easily accessible. You can like after that I started working out a lot more because I was like, man, I kind of feel out of shape. I thought I was in shape before, but no, there's a whole nother level. So yeah, I started being more into fitness after the Two Professors shoot. That kind of was a wake up call. Like, wow, okay.
Oh wow.
Yeah. And the easiest thing was just relating to Donn and just the whole adventure of it all. That was fun. Yeah.
What about you, Donn?
Well, for me, the as far as acting and my approach to it, it's pretty much, the basics. I mean, it's, I always approach each role initially with the basics. Who am I? What do I want? What are my obstacles? What are my inner obstacles? Whether it be fear or doubt or whatever. What are my outer obstacles? Like in this case, these bad guys in this film. And just start from there, and then just making the imagined circumstances real, as Rey said, using him, using my scene partner, playing off of what he's doing, to create that sort of real, genuine dynamic, using the environment, the other actors, and just taking that, what if, and making it real, and then just, acting accordingly.
And so do you ever reveal like your inner conflict? Because that's obviously not something that's on the script. It's like you and I never spoke about that, like actor director. So what was your inner conflict or inner obstacle?
Well, as far as an inner conflict, I think maybe, initially an inner conflict, maybe at the very beginning is a sense of like, a denial, I think. A denial that they're in the situation they're in because, if anything, he's kind of talking, they're talking about Indy and what he did the night before, and also what we're trying to look for, which is this this mythical place, or we think it's mythical. Is it real? That kind of a thing. And I think that's all just to deny, not having any idea, what to do in that sense. So I think just the inner conflict was that sense of like not wanting to admit, even like when the beginning, Rey's character, says, is this what you're talking about? This kind of adventure? And it's like, well, instead of, being like, well, yeah, I'm sorry, bro. He doesn't say, no, I'm sorry, bro. He says, well, you're the one who wanted to come. And, this is, so it's like this sense of like, not wanting to just, admit, yeah, it seems like we're screwed right now. And he doesn't show that. So, that's, I think, what I initially, had as far as inner conflict. And of course, the outer conflict is a lot easier, because of the bad guys being there, and that it's easy to react from that. But that's initially anyway what I think was going on. Okay, I'm looking at my Raiders of the Lost Ark poster right now, and it says screenplay by Lawrence Kasden. So so he wrote the screenplay for Raiders, and then his son now, Jonathan, is supposed to be the one, I think, helming the script for Indiana Jones 5. So I just wanted to make that correction. That's all. In case Jonathan's listening and says, "Hey, maybe I want to cast these guys. maybe I'll write a part about these two bumbling professors in Indy 5."
Right.
Hint, hint. The one thing I do want to say, just for full disclosure too, just because is that I and for anybody listening, just so you know. Yes, Anu and I have actually worked on several scripts before in several films. This is the third one that we did together. And I can tend to sometimes be a certain way as far as feeling a pressure that I think I put on myself, because I tend to feel and think that, it's all on me. Like this is, it's because, I'm the one who initially jump-started the project and got all these people together and asked them to spend their time, to making this and doing this. And so I then feel responsible for it succeeding and happening, and I shouldn't. But unfortunately, if I get myself into that headspace, then I tend to feel that sense of like, okay, well, I've got to act like a producer, and like, okay, let's get this thing moving, because we can't, not get this shot, or we can't, we only got this much time, or whatever, and that doesn't make for the most harmonious set sometimes, because that extra added pressure, people can feel it. It's palpable. I don't realize it while I'm doing it. It's only after the fact, and it was pointed out to me, and rightly so. And that's something that I know that for me going forward as it's something I learned about myself, and realizing that I don't need to do that. I don't need to put that kind of pressure on myself because of the way it manifests in a negative way, frankly, as far as that, and it affects me and everyone else in that negative way. So, that's something that, again, and I talked to Anu about, we talked about it, and I apologized for it, and saying I'm sorry again, and to Rey as well, and to everyone else involved in it. But I allowed, I think, that the idea that I'm responsible for everything to have me, feeling this pressure, which, was not necessary at all. So, so that, having learned that lesson, very valuable lesson, too, I've realized that, no, that I'm not responsible for everything or everyone on a set, and, that we're all there to do something together, and to just kind of just relax, breathe, and just have fun, and we did have fun.
Yeah.
But to make sure that it's the experience is richer, because we're, just that much more comfortable and relaxed, and so.
Oh yeah.
Right. And actually it's interesting because it's like, but I also translate that because, like, yeah, on set, you and I, we have butted heads a lot, not a lot to where, like, it's like, what's that guy, Michael Bay, who quits like Pearl Harbor like 4 times, right?
Right. No deal breakers, thankfully, where it's just like, okay.
Yeah, no deal breaker. It's just like, we're just like two rams butting heads sometimes. And actually that's one of the things I wanted to talk about regarding the acting, because I remember that the scene where both of you guys were talking, I was like, something happened with the camera. I was like, I just need this line set on camera. And then you were like, oh wait, no, I can't. I need to go roll into it more, like getting into character. And it's one of those things where like, we're running out of time. It's like, I just need this. I don't need you to go through the whole. So those were a couple of things where we kind of butted heads. But it's one of those things where I just see the butting of heads as just like, we're both just super passionate about it, as opposed to, okay, I don't care. Do whatever you want. Like that is almost like I would be more bummed out about that. It's like, I don't care, as opposed to, it's got to be this way. It's got to be. I'm like, no, it can't be that way. It's got to be this way. Where it's just like, and Terry Rossio actually said this. It's like, never see it as you guys fighting. See it as your ideas are battling it out, like on a chessboard. And so you take that personal thing out of it. So I never really take it personally. I always like, because you've got great ideas. You've got all this. And I remember on Wedding too, from like 2007, you were saying things and I was in your position where I was producing a film that I wrote with another director. And I was like, dude, you are not getting what I wrote. And I was like pulling my hair out on set. And that is what got me to directing. I was like, I am not letting anybody else direct my script, because you even hear actors talk about this, where a writer-director knows the script way more than a director who's directing somebody else's script, because they know every little nuance, like even on this, I was like, I'm not sure what year it was, 1958. I think he just gave us like a line in the script, as opposed to in his head, he's like, okay, this is coming in right after Kingdom of the Skulls. This is coming in, da, da, da. It's like all this is laid out in his head, which leads up to the script. So that's why I think you need to take a shot at directing, man.
Well, hey, I as far as directing, as you said, it's definitely a specific thing. And when, as you rightly said, I mean, as a writer director, you actually just have more of that vision. I mean, that's why I really respect George Lucas, because of the fact that for those first 6 films, which, were phenomenal, again, including episodes 1, 2, and 3, I think they're, overall, they're phenomenal as well. Because he was so uncompromising, because he was like, no, this is it. This is my concept. This is what I want. This is what I want to create. I did not even know that he had met up with so much opposition or difficulties with the first film. In fact, as far as the like a set being trashed and him having to rebuild the set over, things like that. So yeah, it's that's something that's inspiring.
Yeah, it's actually a really good point, because I talked about this in the other commentary that I have on the Jenny Lorenzo thing, where it's like on this one, I did not come in as a director. Initially I said, okay, I'll just shoot it and I'll just give you the footage.
Right.
And then during the set, I just started like coming up with ideas. I was like, okay, let's do the reveal of you guys getting out. Where you coming out of the weeds there, and like little things, because I love being on set and just coming up with ideas there. And then eventually, like, I'm shooting it and I'm like, I've got the whole vision in my head, because from like a cinematography and then the editing and all that. I'm like, this is what I need to get it all done. And so and just sewing it all together. So you see that coming through, so that's where it's just trying to hang on. So, cause like there's only one cinematographer. You're not going to have everybody on set saying, oh, here, let me get that shot, or let me come in and edit it. But everybody on set is throwing ideas at you. So from a director's standpoint, you're always like, it's like even Ron Howard, he's like, I'm asking the PA, it's like, what do you think of the shot? So it's like everybody is a director, whether they do it or not, that's the thing. And the other thing is like the director will be there from the beginning to the end of the film, whereas people come in and throw ideas here and there. So it's kind of an interesting thing, but it's just like you're saying, like George Lucas hanging on to his vision. I think that is such an important part of being, a filmmaker, whether it's a writer or director, even an actor. It's like there are times where you're battling on set with other people because of your vision. Can you guys talk about any sort of examples that you've had?
Well, I just thought of, even like, let's say a worst case example. And I don't know if you guys saw The Room, the film The Room that came out a year or two ago about Johnny Wiseau, who I didn't know anything about. I didn't know anything about. Well, actually, sorry, the film is called The Disaster Artist, and it's based on The Room, which is called or considered one of the worst, films in Hollywood history. And if you've never seen it, guys, you gotta see it because
with James Franco,
and he's brilliant as Johnny Wiseau. I mean, the guy actually, he acts just like him. And I haven't seen The Room yet, actually. I want to because I love The Disaster Artist so much. But what I got from it is that this guy, the reason for the success and the underground sort of success of this film is that he was as bad of a and bad, of course, being a subjective word. I mean, it's subjective, it is, and yet at the same time, by most people, standards considered, not a great artist or writer or actor by any stretch, and yet he was so held on to his idea, his vision, and his passion for this thing so much that look what's happened and what's created from it.
Right.
He didn't make that with talent. He made that happen with just sheer determination and will and passion and saying, I know this is what I want.
Yeah.
Right.
And for me, when I was growing up, the movie came along, Ed Wood, directed by Tim Burton.
Right.
Yeah, that just Johnny Depp's take on it, how optimistic he was. No matter how bad things were going on his film project, he was just pushing forward and, just keeping that positive outlook and getting through it and creating what, kind of became, in a way, masterpiece of film work in a way. That for better or worse, kind of left an impression on audiences. That
right.
Yeah. So in a way, that kind of pushing forward is very inspiring in a way. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's where a lot of actually I've heard a lot of screenwriters and people say they're like, who are your biggest influences? And a lot of them say Ed Wood.
Really?
Because he kept going after all this opposition. It's not like he had a hit film that everybody loved and the studio's like, here's $1 billion. But he kept going and going and going.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, I'm super inspired by that film, the actual Ed Wood as well, to where because you don't have that budget, and so you make these movies where you're like, oh man, I'm cringing at some of these parts. But you carry through, it's like you finish it and you learn from it and you move on. So yeah, I think that's pretty inspiring I think that's a lot of fear.
Yeah, I think it's very telling that we both just named, for example, two examples of people that people would think subjectively weren't great filmmakers, interestingly enough. But at the same time, it's the tenacity and the belief that they had in what they were doing, and that we admire so much. Because we could also name people like Lucas and what's his name from The Abyss and Titanic, James Cameron, for people like that with uncompromising visions and what they do, and those are easy examples to pull out. But as far as those other guys, I think what makes them stand out is because it's almost like saying you don't even need to be necessarily good. You just you're gonna make your mark if you just believe what you're doing, even if no one else thinks it's good. And so that's why I think those examples, kind of.
Yeah, and I love Woody Allen's quote. He's like 80% of success is just showing up. Yeah, so it's like don't quit, just keep showing up one after the other. And it's funny because what do you guys use to stay motivated? Because this is a tough industry. They say this is actors face more rejection in a year than most people do their whole lives. Which is not a joke. It's that's reality.
Yeah.
And what do you guys do to stay motivated?
Well, I know for me, it's go ahead, Ray, if you want to.
Oh, I was just gonna say, you have to find some kind of balance in life. It's not just about filmmaking or having to get in the next role, but just personal life, family, friends, just kind of make that connection every day. Just see what's out there. And do what you can to make an impact in a positive way. And if there's, if you're in a place where you don't feel like seeing anybody in a particular day, just kind of work on yourself, exercise, watch some good movies, just kind of find something that inspires you each day.
Yeah.
Because for me, it's like I'm a relatively new dad, so my whole life has changed. And it's like, it's amazing. It's like what I've wanted my whole life. And like, I never even really knew it. But if I'm not creating, I have this like emptiness that starts eating at me, like whether it's music or making movies or something like that, to where no matter how much of hanging out with friends helps.
Yeah.
It's like, I got to do something. So like one of the things I do in the morning is I write a song every morning. I improvise a new song, like completely different genres. And that kind of helps get that creative thing starting the day off that way.
Yeah.
What about for you, Don? What's your, how do you get through this tough industry?
Well, for me, just like with you, I mean, I consider myself more of an artist. I mean, I am an actor. I'm also a writer. I'm also a musician. So what that means is, I created a lot of things. I've written, everything from short plays, stage plays. I've written feature films. I've acted in all kinds of mediums. I played guitar, I played bass, I recorded music. And so to me, it's like I've written songs, so to me, it's like, I just want to create something regardless of the format, just creating. And I think for me, the biggest thing is just having something to say. I mean, I am an artist who feels like, well, I'm at my best when I understand that I've been given these gifts, I've been given these talents to be of service in some way. What am I doing with them? What am I saying? How am I helping humanity in some way? Again, not just creating, because I don't, nothing against the word entertainment or what that means and I certainly, it's great that art can be entertaining for sure. But for me, the because of the kind of person I've always been, it's like I have something to say and something that I hope will help, heal, people, or helps them see something differently, or helps them, them, that kind of a thing. So like for Wedding, at that time, at that moment, was one of the most serious pieces I think I'd ever written and created, which kind of just came out of nowhere, but I immediately knew when I wrote it at that time. I still remember writing it one night at 4 a.m. in 1996, and it all just came out like that. I mean, I literally changed maybe a few lines from that, and then even from the stage version to the film version, wasn't that much change. I mean, we added some stuff to flesh out the story in terms of flashbacks, but it just came out that way, and that's when I know I'm at my best, when I can sort of get out of the way, when Don can get out of the way and let whatever message, it can come through the art, whatever I'm trying to say, whether it be in a novel or a book or a picture book, or whether it be in a screenplay or a short film, what am I trying to say here? What's, and just let that come through. And then just my job is to make that, message as, and again, not that, art is, I don't want it to be political or didactic where you just, it's, it's about, trying to just get it across a political message or something like that. No, but more just, what is it saying in terms of, humanity, in terms of, what can this do to help, in any way people feel more human or feel more connected to something or whatever. So yeah.
Did you guys see Sullivan's Travel? I think it's like an old 1930s, 40s film.
No.
It's basically this filmmaker. He's like talking to the studio saying, I want to make a movie with depth and all this. And then he goes on this wild, it's almost like The Two Professors, and he's just like in trouble after trouble, and he finally ends up in jail. Spoiler alert, if you haven't seen the movie from 1930. But he's sitting there and with all these prisoners, and they put on Mickey Mouse, and all the prisoners just dying laughing. And it's the total opposite of the film that he wanted to make, which was like really heavy, deep meaning. And this Mickey Mouse brought so much joy to all these prisoners. He just kind of looked around and kind of just re-examined his whole life on what is important art. Like right after 9/11, I think I saw what's that, Zoolander. And that's like such a ridiculous movie, but that is the movie I needed, after just watching just days and days of the towers collapsing. It's like that was the perfect movie for me,
Right.
you know? And it's like, and so who's to say that that movie doesn't have the same merit as Godfather? I mean, of course, yeah, technically and all that, but to an individual out there who needs it, you know, same with songs. Is like some people are like, oh, I listened to this song and I stopped myself from killing myself. You know, there's so much art like that out in the world,
Right.
you know, and some of it's just like happy-go-lucky.
Yeah. Because those are emotions. I mean, at the end of the day, all of the emotions are human emotions, and we should be feeling them all and processing them all. It's only when we get traumatized by things and then we sort of, hold on to things, or we stop, trying to feel, or we get numb or whatever. And I think, great art, like you said, helps people feel again, no matter what it is, whether it be crying, laughing, feeling joy, feeling sorrow, feeling, we create these things that give them avenues to feel, to allow them to feel again, to laugh, do whatever. So like you said, it's healing. You watching Zoolander was healing to you in a way. So that's art, man. That's,
It's like, I find it tough to just be an actor. I have friends who only act, and I'm like, man, how do you do it? Because like, if you're not doing music, if you're not doing art, you're not writing.
Yeah.
And I find it's like when I go to auditions and act, that's just like gravy. And the rest of it's just stuff I'm working on all the time. So that's what kind of gives me hope to just, go through all the feast or famine areas of this industry, especially the famine areas. So, and it seems like what you guys are both saying too, because you guys are creating all the time. You just feel like you're in it all the time, even though you're not, on a top of the show title on, whatever, CBS or ABC, it's still, you're still creating.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's the idea, is just to keep creating, even if, and I have people like friends like that as well, and I admire them actually in a way, because I'm not that. I have friends who are just musicians. I have friends who are in my writers group who are just writers. I have friends who are just actors, and they have their various levels of success. And they seem very focused, But the commonality between me and them is that they're always, some of them are always doing something. They're always, I have one friend who's a comedian and an actor, and if he's not on a stage somewhere, he's in a club and touring the country and going and doing his craft, and or writer, my writer friends, and they're always writing something, always working on something, or multiple things, one who's got a picture book, and she's also got, a middle grade novel, and she's got a YA book, and whatever. It's that there's a constant sense of immersion in the art, and constantly creating. And by constantly, I don't mean obviously 24/7, like Rey said. There's also balance, and realizing that when you have balance, as Mr. Miyagi said, then everything better. That's my Mr. Miyagi quote of the day. But when you have balance, and so in that sense too, even artists who immerse themselves in their art are hopefully finding time to do other things that will then enrich that art as well.
Yeah.
Can you talk about like, Don, you've had really good success. So when you work on something huge versus something small, like the two professors, like there were like 3 people on set, 5 people on set. When you talk to a non-industry person, like an outsider, they're basically comparing you to Tom Cruise. They're like, oh, that's not as good as Tom Cruise. It's like they don't realize. My wife finally gets it. And now every commercial she sees, she's like, man, that guy went through a lot of auditions to get that one little line in a commercial. So she appreciates it now.
Right.
But people outside of the industry, they're like, oh, it's not a huge, movie. So when they see something small, they're like, oh, it's a little fun film. It's a little plaything. Can you talk a little bit about that? Like the importance of like, what does it mean to you to be in this versus working on a Ridley Scott film?
Well, it's, to me, and I mean, from the point of view of an actor, or being, just being involved or a part of something where art is being created. I mean, it's the same, it's whether it's, 10 people on set or 100, they're all there, for the same purpose, to create something. So, that's, looking back now, I would say that's really the same. I mean, of course, the experience wise, initially for me, like for me, I was blessed enough to get some experience just on major sets. Even in college, I was a stand-in for Blown Away, the film with Tommy Lee Jones and Forrest Whitaker and Jeff Bridges about the Boston Bomb Squad, and and worked for several days on that film, and just the scope of it. I mean, first of all, I was starstruck because it was first time on a major set. And just seeing again how big like one of the scenes where I played, sort of like I was in the body bag of the character that I was standing in for. They needed a body double, so I did that. And and it was by the Boston Harbor, so there's a boat and there's cop cars on the shore, and then there's boat, and then there's a helicopter, and then there was, it was an insanely huge scene. And here I am in this body bag with all this blood and stuff, and then Jeff Bridges and is supposed I just said his name, Big Brother with
Tommy Lee Jones,
and the black actor. I don't know why I'm just blanking. From Good Morning Vietnam. Anyway, yeah, Forrest Whitaker. Yeah, all just staring down at me. And then of course G.I. Jane was my first speaking role, and that same thing. I mean, they shot it down in Jacksonville, Florida, and at 26 years old, that was just eye opening for me. Like, oh my God, I just seeing, for example, the shot, my first shot where I'm driving onto the base, driving Demi Moore's character onto the base, the naval base, and there's like 50 to 60 soldiers, running, extras. There's helicopters, there's trucks. They wanted to create this really alive, base. And I'm just like, oh my God, there's all these moving parts in this scene that need all this coordination and all of this. And how does the director, how does one guy or one person, one female or male, whoever, handle all this? They've got to have, that's when you realize they've got to have people around them, who know what they're doing, and that's what I learned more and more, especially on bigger sets, even like doing, all those years on the soap opera on Passions, that, everybody just knows what they're, if you're smart, you make sure they hire people that know what they're doing. And that's, and that's less pressure on you, I guess, as the director.
Yeah. And actually Ridley Scott says that, who directed G.I. Jane. He was saying, I've got 75 of the best people in Hollywood working on the movies. I can't make a bad movie technically.
Yeah.
So, and it's so true. It's like, you got amazing cinematographers. And so, yeah, so do you feel a, kind of like I don't want to say letdown, but I guess a letdown when you go from that level to like a short, or do you feel like, okay, you know what, it's just all one big
I'm certainly at a point, yeah, no, it's all one big thing. I mean, hey, I just recently, you know what I mean, for me, it's just the joy of being on a set. I don't care if it's a short film or it's a major film. And the last thing I actually did was a small role in there's a sequel to a Batman fan film that I recently did. I think they're still working on it now. And it's called The Nightmare Part 2. And I'm only going to be in the first several minutes, maybe first 5 minutes of it. I had a great time. Because I'd never done something like that before. For me, it's all about the experience of it. Like, oh, hey, I've never, I'm a Batman fan. I've never been in a Batman fan film, and that'd be cool. Playing this character, and of course in the character situation, I'd never played that situation before. It was almost like a horror film for my character in a way, and that was fun to play because I'd never done that, screaming my bloody head off at my last scene.
Right.
But so to me, it's more about I don't care about the budget. I don't, for what I care about is, are we all here to create something and have fun doing it? And if people are, and even on that set, it was a night shoot and people were into it. The director loved what I was doing, and that made me feel good. Like, okay, I'm doing my part. So for me, I learned, early on, there's obviously no such thing as a small, part, just a small actor, because every, and even the big directors will tell you, casting directors and producers will say, for sometimes the toughest parts to cast are the ones with one or two lines, because, they've got to be just right, because if they're not, you're going to notice it's going to be off in that 1 second, in that one, you know what I'm saying, in those movies. You've seen those ones where if it's a short role and they're not that good, it kind of takes me out of it for a second, because I'm like, oh, that delivery person or that cop in that 2 lines just seemed like a fake actor or a bad actor, and then all of a sudden I'm thinking about that, and then I'm out of the moment. But if they're really good, you don't even you don't even notice them. And by notice them, I don't mean that you don't even say, "Oh, that was great acting." Maybe afterwards you will, but you because they do their role perfectly. They facilitate the story, so you stay in the story.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, of course, the paycheck helps. Right?
Of course.
Which is one of the reasons why this film took 2 years, because you got to go on take paid gigs, so then this gets thrown on the back burner, and then it's just that's why it usually takes a lot longer. Like Wedding took 10 years, this one took 2 years. We're speeding things up.
Yeah, and hopefully, and then of course, as we that's having to do with the other side of filmmaking, funding and financing and all that fun stuff, which is why, hey, I not a big fan of being a producer, simply because, that's what their job is, and yeah, that whole, aspect of it, maybe not as so much fun. If you believe in the project, you're going to do it, but yeah, and there's an art. There's an art form to that. There's an art form, I think, to be able to getting certain things financed. And that's something that I would love to learn more. In terms of having more in my skill set as a filmmaker, generally, like for example, even if we were to do the next Indiana Jones thing, like how can we create, a platform where this can, finance itself, or so that it's a little easier for us the next time around. Yeah.
And it's funny because my wife actually works in that field where she hires these social media influencers, and some are getting $25,000 to post one image on their Instagram. And I mean, that's just, and only for 4 days, and they can delete it after 4 days. So, and I was speaking on the panel back in 2012, and I was saying, man, these social media people are eating the lunch of the filmmakers, because the filmmakers don't have that skill. And so they're making hundreds of thousands of dollars. Some are making like 10 million. And so one of the reasons I'm doing this is because one of my friends is blowing up on YouTube, Chad Zuber, and he actually tagged the Filmmaker interviews. I interviewed him also on this, and that was actually giving the Star Wars a kick. Like it was like 14 views, and all of a sudden it shot up to 100 views, the commentary on that. So that's kind of the route I've been leading. Like I used to work at a film festival. I was a programmer for a film festival, and then I would have these things where I'm introducing filmmakers, and there's two people in the audience. They spent $500 a ticket, like for four of them each, and it's just like, sorry, man, you got a 2 p.m. Friday slot. It's like that just kills. Whereas you put it out on YouTube, online, it's just, and you start creating that online community, filmmakers like Film Riot and all these film thread, all these guys. So it's like you're building in your built-in audience to where you are going to actually get a paycheck out of it, and like, so I'm actually leaning that way now. Like I'm putting all my energy towards being not a YouTube star, but being a filmmaker on YouTube, as my day gig. So
yeah, there's platforms that, hey, we didn't have 20 years ago, we got them now, and like you said, there are people who really know how to use them and utilize them. It takes work. I mean, I ain't gonna lie. I mean, I've been trying to up my Instagram, numbers, this whole year. Fairly new to the whole Instagram thing, but it's not easy. But it's time and dedication in that, and of a different kind, and as you said, it can have a payoff definitely for certain people. If you get a certain amount of followers, for example, that's leverage that you can use for producers who want to cast you, and then perhaps use your fan base for marketing. That's something that you can then say, hey, I'm bringing this to the table, what do I get for it? So it's definitely something that you can use.
Right, and using Patreon too. I started signing up for Patreon. Do you guys know what that is?
I actually have a Patreon thing that I launched a little while ago, so it's up there, and it's actually short films and all that. So I just again haven't put much as much time and effort into marketing it as I should or could, and maybe and actually I'd like to. So having said that, saying now that I definitely will put more effort into it, because it can pay off, but there's work.
Right. So have you, like, my biggest fear, not fear, but just resistance to Patreon is just the the 50 levels of rewards. That feels like a whole nother project in itself.
Oh yeah, and that's what I'm saying. It's really I mean, the investing the time to create something that people are then going to go, oh yeah, I want to be a part of this. I want to invest in this. I want to, is the thing, like you said. And then just like hey, look, social media is a part-time job if you're doing it correctly. Between Facebook and Instagram and all that, it really is. And when I was doing it, and I've kind of fallen off a little bit, but yeah, man, for a while I was like, dang, I'm on here every other day. And then you start, in your life, you start thinking about like moments and events like, oh, this could be a picture opportunity for Instagram. Oh, this could be a picture opportunity. Or, oh, I can, and you're planning things out. And maybe the downside is that you don't feel as, as I didn't feel as genuine and authentic in certain moments where I'm like, hey, this would be a great Instagram moment, But at the same time, that is part of the game, part of the thing of how do you, what content are you going to be offering to people that's going to entice them to be a part of it and support what you're doing.
And Ray, you're pretty active as well on social media, right?
Yeah. I've just like building up an online presence. It does take a lot of time and effort to, and a little bit of know-how on how to market certain things in different ways. Like there's Twitter and Instagram and a little bit on Facebook. And setting up your own websites and stuff to kind of link things together. Yeah, there's a lot of skill and know-how that goes into that. But when you do start getting into it, like for me, I just try to think about like what's something that kind of struck me as informative or interesting or fun, and just try to share that. Because otherwise you can share just about anything like throughout your day, and that does also take time too, when you kind of think about what am I going to say about this? What am I going to say about that? But if it's something that means something to you, then it can be kind of effortless, you just kind of go, oh, this is something I really got to share or, get out there. And just kind of think about like what is something that is meaningful to you and you that can maybe help or be inspiring to others as well.
And what do you guys see as the ROI on this, like social media, as actors?
The ROI in terms of return, return on it. Yeah, just the ROI is the investment of the time. Hopefully translates into a bigger audience, bigger followers, as they call them, that you can then utilize hopefully for other things. As I said, if you're an actor, use it for leverage when negotiating a contract or something like that. So that's how I see it from a business perspective. I mean, yes, there's that little part that's the ego part, and if and if you're not a balanced person or whatever, or if you don't want, let's just say, you don't want that to be the part that you are doing it for. Oh, I'm doing it for the likes, or doing it because because then you can get into that trap of like I remember reading this about this Australian Instagram star, and she spent like years doing it, and then she just stopped all of a sudden, and apparently she was just so not only burned out, but realized that wasn't important, because she realized she let it take over her life in not in a good way, in a way where all she was thinking about was, how do I up the followers, what can I do to and so she realized that most of her life became not genuine anymore. Like nothing was genuine, because it was all about creating something that she didn't, wasn't really her. So I think that's definitely the danger of it, on that side. But the other side of it is I think if you have a good perspective and a balanced perspective on why you're doing it, and clear about that for yourself, then and where it's not about the ego and not about as Ray said, you're sharing, you want to share things, and hopefully people respond. Is the thing. So and then the other aspect of it is when you're on these different platforms, is not just sharing what your content or something that is meaningful to you, but just to see what's helping others, and by just exploring what's out there. Friends of yours might also be on these different platforms, and it's kind of good to just to stay in touch in that way, see what everybody's doing and working on, and what's meaningful to them. And who hasn't had a reunion with their high school or college buddies, right. On Facebook, right?
Yeah. Right. Yeah, put classmates out of business. Remember that was the one you had to pay to get to know your old classmates?
Oh, yeah.
So do you guys pretty much, like, I was just looking at your Instagram pages, and you guys are pretty much geared towards acting, right? Like, would you say like 90% of your posts are based on that?
Well,
Yeah.
yeah. My you know, my Instagram, you know, the idea of it, you know, you can tell just from what I'm posting on it is clearly just about my, you know, well, pretty much about me, and then the aspects of me as an artist, as an actor, mostly as an actor, a writer as well, and all that. So,
Yeah.
you know, I just wanted to be about that. Whereas my Twitter is, I call that my writer sort of community. I've got a lot of my writer contacts, as well as, you know, authors and publishers and editors there. Facebook is more fans and family, interestingly enough. So a lot of my fans from my acting, from my soap opera days and all that are there. Family is there. So, and with them, I kind of is more of a general, like, just moments of my life. But even then again, you know, I just choose.
Yeah, each platform you kind of gear it. You have a different angle, and in the sense of like how you approach something. And yeah, like for me again, like what Don was saying is, Facebook has a lot of family, and Instagram, you know, you reach audiences differently, and same with Twitter. It's all kind of different ways of reaching out to the world and hearing the world in different ways.
Have you guys gotten roles off of any like particular social media, like Facebook versus Twitter, or
No, not any roles.
Have we gotten what?
getting a role or like casting notices, things like that?
Oh,
No.
that's interesting.
I mean, you know, I, you know, whether it be, I mean, for me, you know, I have, you know, my subscriptions, you know, to Backstage, and I use Actors Access.
Right.
I also have LA Casting, you know, like
Yeah.
like most actors out here, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. I actually got a role where eventually I ended up meeting my wife. So
Oh,
I
wow.
was like,
I see that.
so that was like, it was like life changing for me. You know, it was like I've got a baby out of it. So all based off of
You're
one
wow.
post on
changed.
Facebook.
So you got so you basically
yeah.
you thank Facebook every day for your family now.
Yeah, it's
Wow.
funny. It's like Benjamin Button. That one scene is like where he just talks about all these little crossroads that happened in order for this event to happen. You know, it's like I do look at that,
Wow.
and it's funny. I always talk about it with my wife. Like, if we didn't have this, like, you know, it's like even like, you know, like exes. If my ex didn't do this, then I
Right.
would not have met you.
And it kind of lends the you know, belief that everything happens for a reason, you know, that the way things happen,
Yeah.
things that we think of as insignificant moments actually are not, because they're just as important as every other moment, because they're all connective, and this connectivity you
Yeah.
know,
Right.
leads us to where we are. So yeah. Well, if they get this far, I mean, I want to commend or thank whoever, if they're listening this far into it, that's
So
commendable.
that's why I'm like, this is gonna be, it's gonna be primarily filmmakers and actors are gonna be the biggest audience for this, because you picture some, you know, 15-year-old kid in, you know, Texas, like, oh, I'm thinking about moving out to LA. Okay, let me check out this podcast. You know, it's like I feel like that's why I'm kind of catering it more towards that. I can't picture the general population watching this or listening to this.
True.
So that's why I really want to kind of talk shop, you know, like on a lot of these interviews, like that's why it's filmmaker interviews.
No, it was awesome, man, and thank you again. Thanks for thinking of it and asking us to do it. It was a lot of fun, man.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. Any parting words?
Well, I'm gonna quote a movie. I think it was called The Lions or The Two Lions, or I don't remember. But Haley Joel Osment. It was like his second or third film after Sixth Sense, and he lived with like two uncles or something. Again, I can't really remember the film, and one of them was played by Robert Duvall, and I remember the one quote that Robert Duvall
Oh yeah.
tells him.
Michael Caine is in
Yes,
that.
yes, I think so. Yeah, you're right, Ray. It's Michael Caine and Robert Duvall. And Robert Duvall tells, you know, Haley Joel Osment's character at one point in the film, it doesn't matter what you believe, so long as you believe in something. And I think, you know, that can be applied, of course, you know, the best things, the best sayings, right? I think have a universal application. It's not just like, you know, applying it to one thing, you know, like acting or being an artist necessarily. I think that's applicable to all of life, you know.
Right.
But it's true. That's the thing I want to leave everybody with. It doesn't matter what you believe in, just believe in something.
Awesome. Ray?
Yeah, I second that. It definitely just believe in yourself and do what you feel is right and go forward.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yes.
And the quote
Yeah.
I always use that kind of gets me through is like, you only fail when you quit. So it's up to you when you fail.
Nice. Nice. Yeah.
Awesome, gentlemen. Thank you so much. And thank you to all the listeners
Yes.
who actually made it this far.
Thank you.
Leave a note, comment if you have any questions. Like we said, we've got tons of experience. We've been doing this for a long time. So any advice that we can, dispel to new up and coming actors, filmmakers, we're here for, you guys. So, all right. Well, with that, have a good night. Thank you.
Good night.
All right. Good night, guys.